Where's the flag? Flag here. Yeah. Ready, Gianna? Wait, right. Yes. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be like Jake.
Amen.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Great job.
Good morning, everyone. Are these on? Who has the microphone? Are these on?
Yeah, they're on.
They're on?
Yep.
Are they on?
Yep.
Sorry. Good morning. I'm Teresa Berger, Mayor of Howell, New Jersey, just a couple of miles south of here. So welcome to this area in Monmouth County. We're here today to sign a bill to expand medical marijuana. This name of this bill has changed multiple times. It was Bill 3421. Then it became Jake Honig's Compassionate Use Medical Cannabis Bill. It's now known as Jake Honig's Bill, a much better name. We're here to sign A20-S20. I'm thrilled to be a part of this occasion because law advances compassion. I'm sorry. we can advance our medical services. We can have compassion. But if there is bureaucracy that stops us, whether it's red tape, whether it's high cost, or just people deciding that it's not a good idea, I don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's fair to the people who need the service, who need this medication. And so I say thank you very much to the governor and to everyone else who has approved this bill so we can move forward. This being said, I would like to introduce some members today: Assemblyman Andrew Zwicker, Assemblyman Eric Hotali, Assemblywoman Serena Damaso, and Freehold Mayor Barbara McMorrow. Thank you all for joining us.
Mike, you're up.
Sure.
I was supposed to introduce the Honigs. Sorry and thank you.
We'd first like to thank wonderful event hosts Tommy and Yvette for allowing us to host this at your establishment. We gave them only about 5 days notice and said, do you mind if 100 people come? And by the way, the governor's going to hold a press conference, and they've been more than accommodating, so thank you to Tommy and Yvette. We didn't just pick any restaurant on Route 9. There's meaning behind Tommy's. It was one of Jake's favorite restaurants. It's a wonderful family, and again, we're honored to be here. We'd also like to thank, of course, every single individual that is here today. You've been with us through the journey, and you know there's been a lot of lows, but it's also important for everybody to come together and experience something so positive that comes out of a pretty crummy experience, and something as positive as this. So thank you to everybody. Be Like Jake always shows up strong, always. So how did we get here? Our son, Jake Honig, was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2012, August 3rd. Hearing that your son has brain cancer is probably the second worst thing you can hear. Jake battled for 5 years, and through that time he spent some happy days in remission, but he also relapsed 3 times. Jake underwent brutal treatments that included 2 brain surgeries, 61 rounds of radiation, and over 20 rounds of chemotherapy. But what was so impressive is not the therapy that Jake endured, but how he endured it. Jake was a master of controlling what he could. Jake couldn't control that he had cancer. He couldn't control that he had to go through these barbaric treatments, but he could control the fact that he found some point, at least in every day, to smile and controlling what he could, and that's why Jake the Tank continues to be our inspiration. During Jake's treatments, he was part of the New Jersey medical marijuana program for 9 months. Jake was on medical cannabis, and he would go to school. He would excel in sports. He would play video games. He'd spend quality time with his family and friends. You would never know that Jake was on medical cannabis because the way that we were able to administer his medicine. There came a time in Jake's disease that the cancer became too much, and we were told the worst thing that a parent can hear, and that was that Jake was going to die. When we heard that, we were released on hospice with what seemed to be a gallon of morphine and more Oxycontins than any one household should ever have their hands on. Jake's disease progressed, and we would use the medications that were so-called modern-day medicine's best. We would give him his morphine, and we would give him his oxy to help control the pain, nausea, vomiting, agitation, sleep, and delusion, which the medicine did very little, if anything, to treat those symptoms. Morphine and Oxycontin proved to have stronger side effects than it did to be efficacious. When Jake was on morphine, he would become high. He would have side effects so bad that he would scratch his chest that he would actually bleed. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't look at food. He couldn't look at water without vomiting. He was truly a different person while on those medications. It was then when we made a decision to increase his usage of medical cannabis. And to our delight, every time we would dose him his medical marijuana, 20 minutes later, his pain would subside. He was able to eat, he was able to drink, he was able to sleep, he was able to spend time with Gianna, spend time with us. He was able to watch movies, he was able to go on his iPad. But most of all, he was able to laugh again, and the medical cannabis allowed for Jake's personality to shine through his cancer. Medical cannabis proved not to be life-saving for Jake, but certainly life-changing for us as a family. There's one instance that we remember, and we talk about it often, and it was about a week before Jake passed away. We dosed him his medical marijuana. It was the only medication he was on, a week before he passed away. We're sitting on the couch together as a family in January, and we're watching the movie Frozen. And Jake's sitting to my right, and he's eating his Chick-fil-A waffle fries, but in typical Jake fashion, he was scooping his waffle fries into a Wendy's Frosty and just loving every minute. And I'll never forget, he kind of gave me a nudge, and he goes, "Hey, bro." And I look at him. I looked at the joy on his face as he's watching this movie, and I started to cry, and Janet started to cry because we were so happy that he had a moment of happiness. And we knew this wasn't going to last forever. It was we knew we were living in a special moment that medical marijuana allowed us to have. And he shoves me and he says, "Hey, bro." I go, "What?" And he's hysterical. He goes, "The snowman's talking." And I go, "I know. Olaf's pretty cool, isn't he?" And I'll never forget, I heard it subtly in my ear as he puts another waffle fry in his mouth, and he goes, "This is great." And I thought to myself, this is great. We're experiencing something that, unfortunately, a lot of other parents that are in this situation don't get to experience. And that is simply because of the medical cannabis that he was on. Eventually, the disease became too much, and Jake passed away January 21st, 2018. He passed away comfortably in his own bed. After that time, we knew that we had a mission no longer to fight for Jake, but instead to continue Jake's fight. And we've been able to do that in a number of ways. The first is the Be Like Jake movement was started, a 501c3 organization that helps families in Middlesex, Monmouth, and Ocean County. And we directly impact these families by raising awareness and funds for childhood cancer. And I want to thank the Strumolo family, the Martino family, and the Shern family for your support and allowing us to accomplish so many amazing things in such a short period of time. We'd also like to thank 3 organizations that were there for us every step of the way, and that is Squanathon, Francis Foundation, and Kick Cancer Overboard. You guys were there to support us when we were going through the worst of times, and now we look to you as mentors as you continue your organizations, and one day we strive to be as successful as you are. The other way that we promised to continue Jake's fight is to raise awareness for medical marijuana. The biggest obstacle we ran into was actually running out of medication. When we would run low or completely run out, we had to substitute in the morphine and the oxy. And not once did the morphine or oxy become as efficacious as the medical marijuana. In fact, every single time, the side effects completely outweighed any benefit it was providing. Our biggest obstacle was running out of medicine, something that no parent should ever have to endure. Your child goes through everything that's asked: surgeries, radiation, chemotherapy. And then when it comes to the time when you can no longer save their life, all you can do is keep them comfortable, you should be allowed to do that as a parent. And what Jake Honig's bill will do, among many, many advancements, people are calling this the strongest medical marijuana bill in the country. Among many things, what is so special and nearest to our heart is that it completely lifts the ban for terminally ill patients. Now they can receive unlimited amount of medication that it will take to keep them comfortable as they end their life. Jake's made the ultimate sacrifice. What a lot of people don't realize is that 7 children die every day from cancer. 42 are diagnosed every day from cancer. That's in this country. And we think about all the kids that made the ultimate sacrifice, including Logan Parker, Stephanie Bader, Lena the Lion. They're here today as well. Their families are here today. Their children, unfortunately, made the ultimate sacrifice with Jake, but they're all looking down and know that today is a very positive day. Advocates have waited for this. Caregivers have waited for this. Parents have waited for this. But most important, patients have waited for this. So we're not going to hold it up any longer. We are proud to have First Lady Tammy Murphy in attendance, and it's our honor to introduce the Governor of the State of New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy.
I thought Mike was a friend. I just said to him, "Why do I have to follow you?" What can I possibly say? My Lord, God bless us. Please bear with me. There we go, sorry. Oh, my Lord, what a special day. To Mike, Janet, and Gianna. By the way, Gianna, the Pledge of Allegiance to you and your buddies there. That was pretty extraordinary. Mike and Janet and Gianna, I guess we basically started to meet virtually the weekend Jake passed, having read about him in the papers, and we've been on this journey with you ever since. And thank you for everything you do, and certainly for being here this morning, and thank you for being such powerful advocates on behalf of Jake and his memory, and on behalf of everybody else, including those little kids who have already gone before us, like Jake, and those whose lives we will at least make better, if not save, by the actions we're taking today. Making medical marijuana available as a treatment for kids like Jake has been a long, complex journey, and our entire state is indebted to you all and to Jake and his memory for walking us throughout this process. One more time for the Honigs. As they say, it takes a village, and we certainly have a village here today. I want to make sure we give a shout out to Mackenzie Hupke, who sang the anthem and who herself has battled with cancer. Mackenzie, stand up and please take a bow. I was going to say something like the Mets could use you to sing the national anthem. Turns out the Mets could probably use you in right field as well. That's for another discussion. I want to thank the Bonfiglios. I said to Tommy when I grew up, I had a parish priest named Father Bonfilio, and Tommy reminded me that he got sick of telling people it's pronounced like the G's like a Y, say with G. But to you and Yvette for hosting us today. But more broadly, right? When a family is going through the nightmare of caring for a sick child, it is families like yours that help them get through it. And what a tremendous example you have set for the community by reaching out to feed families who are in the middle of a struggle. This is one of 3 locations. We'll do a shameless commercial for your operation. Whenever you see the word TAP, knowing I'm a Murphy, I'm going to have a second home here, I promise you. You've worked with the Ashley Lauren Foundation. You do Child of the Month. You feed folks like the Honigs and Jake himself going through dark times. God bless you again. Thank you for everything you all do. I want to also give a shout out to some folks on our team. Commissioner Dr. Sharif El Nahal, our health commissioner. Assistant Commissioner Jeff Brown. I have expressed my intent to nominate Sharif's successor. Judy Persicelli is with us. Judy. And Sharif and Jeff and your teams, I want to commend you on your work on our medical marijuana program. It has improved the quality of life of tens of thousands of patients and their families, and I can't thank you enough. I want to give a shout out to Parimal Garg on our team, who's been on this journey from day one. And one other member of our team, it's her birthday. We may sing. Aliana Alfaro is with us. Happy birthday, Aliana. I also want to thank some folks up here with me and also reiterate the acknowledgments of the elected officials in the audience. Let's hear it for the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin. Senator Joe Vitale behind me. Assembly members Joanne Downey and Joe Danielson. Thank you so much for your advocacy and for your compassion for the patients who benefit from this expansion. I said to Joe Vitale on the Senate side, when it's the bottom of the ninth and there are 2 outs on matters of health care, whether it's the bill that we're signing today or whether it's the whole range of bills related to the Affordable Care Act. Joe, I cannot thank you enough on the Senate side. And on this one, Joe Danielson, even when we disagreed on this stuff, you were a tireless advocate. But to all the elected officials, Barbara, great to be with you. The huge Monmouth contingent, Joanne and Serena and Declan and Eric. Andrew, welcome over to this side of the state as well. But to all the elected officials, one more time, let's give them a shout out. And Mayor Dr. Teresa Berger, you're on a road trip from Howell, but the Honigs hail from Howell. It's great to have you with us today, and your chairman, John McCabe, who's another dear friend who's with us as well. So in January of 2018, and I got elected in November of 17, we took the oath on the 16th of January. Within a matter of days, I signed an executive order directing the New Jersey Department of Health to review all aspects of our existing medical marijuana program with a specific focus on expanding patient access. Our goal has always been to have a program that is modernized, compassionate, and puts patients first. That review concluded with proposed new rules to make our medical marijuana program functional and capable of meeting the needs of patients, and proposed statutory changes, many of which I'm proud to sign in a few moments into law today. With today's changes, we are raising the monthly limit on medicinal marijuana so that patients won't need to take dangerous and addictive opioids, as Mike alluded to, just because they couldn't be prescribed the necessary amount of vital and appropriate medicine. We're extending the authorization period. We're doing many things today. These are just some of the things we're doing. The authorization period from 90 days to a year, lifting some of the burden for these patients who are already spending too much money and more time than they ever wanted to spend in a doctor's office. We are allowing edible forms of medical marijuana, which are easier for many patients to ingest, to be available for adult patients and not just minors. And over the next 3 years, we will be completely phasing out the sales tax on medical marijuana. Yeah, that's a big one. That is a big one, so that it is treated like any other form of medicine. Thank you to all the patient advocates, doctors, nurses, family members, and the public for supporting this issue. Over the past several years, a lot of us have come to a new understanding of how medical marijuana can be used to help patients. With this knowledge, both minds and laws have been changed, and most importantly, sick people have been helped, pain has been eased, and precious moments with sick family members have been cherished. I would now like to introduce our Commissioner of Health, Dr. Sharif El-Nahal. Sharif, as you move to a new chapter at University Hospital, I want to especially thank you for all you've done as Commissioner of Health to lead and educate us on this and many other issues. We will miss you. Judy's got big shoes to fill, and we know that she will fill them. Dr. Sharif El-Nahal. Thanks, buddy. Love you.
Today is really a great day, and thank you, Governor, for medical marijuana patients. And as we celebrate, we remember people like Jake, whose story will benefit literally every patient who is on medical marijuana in this state going forward. One of these patients I've met at her home is Lindsay, going 7 years strong with a disease called ALS, a progressive disease that makes it harder to move and function over time. The average life expectancy with this disease is just 5 years. Medical marijuana helps Lindsay manage her pain. It calms her anxiety. It allows her to sleep, and it allows Lindsay to continue being her incredible self, spending time with her family, friends, and loved ones. What happened with Jake and his incredible family is being replicated with patients across the state. My first conversation with a resident of New Jersey in my job was with Mike Honig and his family. And it's very fitting that my last press conference with the governor is also by their side. Their story... Thank you. Thanks, Governor. Governor helps me in a lot of ways, including fixing my collar.
Do it all up here.
Yep. Jake's story also encourages our program itself to continue reforms that are more responsive to patients, doctors, and dispensaries. Just a few things that we've done over the last 18 months at Governor Murphy's request. We've added 6 new conditions, most notably chronic pain and most recently opioid use disorder, streamlined the process for adding new conditions. We reduced the wait time for new patient cards from 4 weeks to just a few days. We slashed registration fees from $200 to $100 for the entire patient base, but also added other populations like veterans and the elderly to the $20 reduced price card fee. We more than doubled the number of patients, physicians, and caregivers in the program. We chose an additional 6 alternative treatment centers to add to the supply for patients in this state, and just did a new proposal yesterday to add 24 additional ATCs to get in line with this new legislation. And for children like Jake, we removed needless barriers that don't exist for other essential medications, like the blanket requirement that children have to see a child psychiatrist before they get the therapy. That is no more. But besides these programmatic changes that our governor has asked for, The staff in the program, led by Assistant Commissioner Jeff Brown, has gone above and beyond for patients. Just last month, a 2-year-old was diagnosed with a terminal condition. Our team heard about it on Sunday, and by Monday, the patient was processed in our system, and a member of our staff personally drove their card to an alternative treatment center so the family could pick it up that day, all within 24 hours. That's why we're here. The governor mentioned all of this still fell short of what we could do for patients. This is what the bill does for today. In addition to what he mentioned, there will be now special caregivers to assist developmentally disabled people, folks in healthcare facilities that are institutional caregivers, so parents and family members don't have to drive sometimes 2-3 times a day to facilities just to administer this medication. Patients will get workplace protections, housing protections, protection from discrimination in healthcare settings, including organ donation transplant lists. Folks were being kicked off of those lists just for testing positive for medical marijuana in their system. No more. We are allowing advanced practice nurses and physician assistants to authorize the therapy, and we'll see a vast expansion in supply for patients. So thank you to the legislature and to the governor for your dedication to all of this. And barring any public health disaster, again, this will be my last press conference with the governor, knock on wood. And thank you to him and all of my colleagues in the administration for the opportunity of a lifetime to serve in this great state. Thank you all.
I still didn't get the call Thank you, man. You hear somebody say the words, barring another public health disaster, and please God, Sharif, I love you. Hope this is the last time I see you before you have your new job. So just to back up, to put one frame on this, we have talked about in the past, and we haven't talked about it a whole lot lately. And again, Mike and Janet started the process of getting me up to speed. We were one of the first states to have a medical marijuana regime. This predates us. In the last administration, no politics here, but the fact of the matter is it didn't take off. For whatever reason, we can talk about why later on, it just didn't take off. And I measure that in the amount of folks who were participating, the amount of dispensaries, the amount of afflictions that were counted that would make you eligible, the amount of physicians who signed up and weren't stigmatized to be a part of it. So we started literally almost immediately to open up that regime. And I said right from the beginning, we can do a lot, and we have done a lot. I think we've added, about 3,000 patients per month, I believe, on average. So this is now exploding, which is part of the reason we also have to sign this into law today, because we need more places. The supply-demand imbalance is starting to really choke us. But I said right from the beginning, I can only do so much. As good as Sharif and Jeff and the Paramount and the whole team is, through executive action, we can only do so much. We needed legislation to really open this thing up. And so I want to reiterate my deep appreciation for the leadership in the legislature in both chambers. And you don't get there without the leader. And it's my honor to bring up the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Thanks for that kind introduction. Thank you all for being here on this incredible day and beautiful day. It's good to be together to celebrate something really important for the state of New Jersey. You know, the bill, Jake's bill, passed the Assembly 66-5 to 5. And I point that out because it demonstrates the broad bipartisan support that this issue had. And it's a testament to the sponsors and to the staffs, and I want to commend the staffs of the governor's office and the Senate's office and my office, especially Dan Smith, who's standing over there, who spent hours, and I mean hours and hours, getting this right. But they did. And it's also a testament to the two sponsors here from the Assembly that are with us today, Joanne Downey and Joe Danielson, who worked as hard as they could to put together a bill that was acceptable to so many and really accomplishes what it was intended to do. For over a year, the Assembly and the administration and the Senate worked to create a responsible, accessible cannabis law that allows patients to have greater access to it. And today is a real win for the state of New Jersey and for families like the Honigs who fought so hard to ensure that that expanded access to medical cannabis was here. Mr. and Mrs. Honig, your story is remarkable. Your family is incredible. And we are better because of your efforts. So out of something incredibly horrible, something I think most of us could never even possibly imagine, something good has happened because of your efforts. So thank you for that. We all understand, those of us in the legislature, those of us who worked on this bill, that there are so many obstacles for so many people. But today we help overcome those. And we allow people with chronic pain, those people who have debilitating symptoms, the opportunity to have the relief that they so deserve. And so I'm proud to have been part of that. The medical use of cannabis, as we all know, has been long established as a safe way of treating so many of the diseases that it helps with. And so we move forward today. Yesterday we celebrated the minimum wage going into effect. Yeah. Today we're celebrating this law going into effect. I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings. Thank you all for coming out.
Craig, peace in the Korean Peninsula, I believe, is up for tomorrow. We'll also be doing that at one of the Bonfiglio's places. Thank you, Speaker. Just exactly. That'll be one you and I will never forget. I love that. Again, both chambers stepped up in a big, big way. So thank you, Speaker, for your words and your leadership. I want to flip chambers. I mentioned this earlier on any matters related to health care. And while he has lots of allies in the fight, including, by the way, I'll reiterate my warm welcome to the First Lady, the great First Lady of the great state of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy's in the house. It takes a village for all of us, but there's no more clarion voice. There's no better leader on matters of health care. Please help me welcome Senator Joe Vitale.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you for those kind words, and for the host today, for making this restaurant available to this really important day. And one thing Mike forgot to mention, the Governor's picking up the tab, so drinks, food, it's all good. Thanks. Anyway, but this was a team effort, and but first, when I first met and spoke with Mike and his family, to understand the depth of what they went through, and we knew all along from, for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been, as a legislature and as members of the health committees in both houses, struggling with trying to improve the medical marijuana system. And we, of course, we met resistance with the previous administration. We worked really hard, but there's one person who's not here today who was really the pioneer on the legislative side for medicinal marijuana. It's Senator Nick Scutari. So we should give Nick a hand for his work in this effort. And also, it is truly bipartisan, and this issue really demonstrated that. And there's Senator O'Scanlan here from Monmouth County, from the Red Bank area, I believe, who was really, as a different party member, didn't matter. All that stuff gets set aside on something that's this important. And Declan, thank you for your support and for your advocacy. And I know I mentioned, the Governor mentioned his staff, and the team at the department were incredible, starting with the commissioner, but also Jeff Brown, who led this fight internally, not just the fight, but literally like every bit of language, every word mattered, every thought mattered, and he was a terrific person to work with from the legislative side to the administrative side, to bridging that gap, on the phone all the time, always available to ask a question, answer a question. So thank you, Jeff, for your great work inside. As a parent of a young child, I can't even imagine what the Honigs went through and are still go through. When my daughter coughs, we worry about her. Skins her knee, we rush to her side. And to think about what they went through and what Jake went through is, we can't put this into words. And as parents and as friends and family members, we can't say anything more, but you have really truly been, and we use this word a lot, but you have truly been an inspiration to all of us. And thank you for that. So there's a lot of people to thank, but mostly the Honigs for all their advocacy all along, really putting a face and a purpose on this legislation and on this effort. They've been terrific, and they really can't say enough about the work that they've done, not just in the past, not just today, but in all the months and years to come through their work, through their advocacy for the organization that they're building and the people who are supportive and all the other families, for that matter, who are going through this awful time. Medical marijuana is not just important to the Honigs and what their child went through and be able to deal with the pain and manage their pain. But I was just out in Colorado last week for a conference, and it was for business, not for recreation. And but I went to a couple of dispensaries and met with the folks who run them. And one was a really small shop off the sort of beaten path, and one was a larger dispensary. And we spent a lot of time talking about not the recreational side, not the adult use side, but the medical side. And as I was meeting with them and speaking with them, patients were coming in to meet for the very first time with the dispensary, and those who were coming in for a second or third trip for medicine for themselves or for their family members. And they were very clear in a really unbiased manner what this means to the patients that they serve as an alternative to other opioid pain medication, but also as a way in which to start a course of treatment for a patient who is suffering from pain, any kind of illness that medicinal marijuana can treat. That's really the first course of treatment, not the last. And so for that, we're obviously grateful here in New Jersey that we are going to be one of the leading states in the nation to adopt these new policies. And so, Governor, thank you for being our governor, for getting this done as soon as you got into office and moving this forward, for your team and for everyone else, and particularly for the Honigs, for your incredible hard work and your leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Joe, for your leadership. Mike said this, I think by many measures when we sign this in a few moments, and I apologize to the folks outside, we're almost there. It's about 5,000 degrees to my right. This will be among, if not, and Joe alluded to this as well, the strongest medical marijuana laws and regimes in the United States. So we should all feel really good about that. Back to the Assembly. Again, it does take a village. It's our administration. It's the Senate. We heard from the Speaker, and he had two fierce advocates. He had many fierce advocates, but we're going to hear from two. Monmouth County's own, first up, Assemblywoman Joanne Downey.
All right, I'm going to do this and trying not to cry because I have to say I'm so excited to be here because this is one of those moments. And I'm going to try to remember all of you here and just take this in because this is why I wanted to become a legislator. I wanted to be able to help people. And this kind of moment is the kind of moment that makes you feel like with everything else that goes on from day to day, this is what it comes down to. A lot of wonderful people who come together, starting with the Honig, going through our houses, through both our Speaker, Craig Coughlin, through the Senate, including our wonderful Senator Joe Vitale, going through all the different stakeholders, the wonderful work of Joe Danielson, our Assemblyman, who worked on this tirelessly, having us come in on Saturdays at times, and him working day on and day night, every night that he could possibly find, even on vacation, calling me, that he was working to change language on this bill to make sure it would go through. To my partner, Eric Otelling, always being there too, by my side with it. To Andrew Zwicker being there as well. To the other people who I can't even name all the people who are involved. I see so many faces that were here. But I want to also, and thank the governor, of course, because without him, none of this we wouldn't be here today. So I wanted to thank also, first and foremost, somebody who never gets talked about, but the reason why I got involved to begin with. And that was my niece, Morgan Dias, right here, this young lady. She texted me late January, December, and said, I just saw an article in Howell about a little boy, and I know this family, the J. Honig family, and they want just one thing for this little boy, and they want to make sure that the legislator, can someone reach out to the governor and find out if we can expand how many ounces that you're allowed to get per month and be able to get the oils so that he can have what he needs. And he wants to see that for everyone out there. So I was like, I can do this. I'll do this. So I reached out to the governor, and the First Lady. And I want to say within moments, they got back to me saying that they were on this. And within a very short period of time, I think it was within a week, they already had the Honigs. They had already spoken to the Honigs, I think, that day. They had already gotten everything together to get the executive order and having them there to make sure that we went forward with expanding our medical marijuana program. To me, that is government at its best. When people talk about politicians, I turn it around and say, these are your public servants at work, people who really want to help. And that's what happened here. From one piece to the other, starting from a citizen to moving on to people she knew, to then moving on and on and on to here we are today. And I know Jake's with us. I was just saying to Mike, the flag was hitting us in the back there, and I'm thinking, that's got to be Jake. He's around here somewhere, and he's happy and smiling. And I'm so proud to see Jake Honig, Compassionate Use Medical Cannabis Act signed into law today, or soon to be signed into law today. It's a victory for patients and families from every corner of our state, delivering medical justice, yes, justice, to every person who has waited for its passage. Too many patients struggle with chronic pain, debilitating conditions that leave them exhausted, sickly, or unable to actually do common daily tasks. Jake, the Tank Honig, the law's namesake, was one of these patients. And to hear the story when Mike was telling me, his dad was telling me about how much medical marijuana helped him by allowing him up until the day before he died, or just I think the day until he died, to be able to play video games and eat his French fries and have his, the kind of milkshakes, the softies that he liked. I forgot what they're called, the ones from Wendy's. And knowing that they didn't even realize, because he was able to enjoy every moment with his family, and sometimes that's everything. It is everything, because we don't know what's going to happen. We'd like to think that people will be cured, but in the end, at least we have every moment with our loved ones. 7-year-old Jake, he was diagnosed with brain cancer at the age of 2, and he fought that condition, as Mike said until it took his life last year. And between all of his constant operations, everything you heard about what he had to go through, it was only medical cannabis that was the thing that helped him to be able to play and be the person that he is, enjoy every moment, especially with his sister Gianna too, and his family. As Jake's body also built up tolerance, he needed more, and he definitely wasn't getting enough. So this is why this is so important. For too long, our state has prevented patients like Jake from receiving enough cannabis to properly treat their sicknesses, and kept them from accessing the forms of medication that best suits their needs. Here, terminal patients will be able to get as much as they want now, and that's the way it should be. Today, that's going to change everything for expanding medical marijuana for all the people like Jake out there, not only children, but also adults, for people out there who need it. Though he's not here to see it, Jake's parents, Janet and Mike, and his sister Gianna, and much of his extended family and his friends have been very strong fighters, the strongest fighters I've ever seen. And I'm so grateful for their passion, their courage, and their leadership. And again, I want to thank Governor Murphy for working so closely with us, with the Honigs, with everyone on this important piece of legislation. This new law is a win for compassion, for leadership, and for the quality of life of every person that it benefits, for every person out there, but also for every little boy and girl in the hospital right now, wondering when their pain will stop. We're saying right now, help is on the way. It's already on the way. So thank you to all of you, and God bless, and thank you again.
Great job. Really well said, Joanne. Whenever you have a program and Joe Danielson is batting cleanup, it's a good program. A guy who, as I said, was in this fight as a fierce leader and advocate. It is my honor. Please help me welcome up Assemblyman Joe Danielson.
The reality is there's levels of darkness when one of your loved ones is sick, especially when it's your child. My child was hit with cancer too, like Assemblyman Zwicker's child, and every 2 minutes a child is diagnosed with cancer. I shaved my head and fundraised for St. Baldrick's, and there's a sense that we're not doing enough, because we're not doing enough. When you're in the hospital, and you find that the hospital and the doctors have a don't ask, don't tell policy with marijuana, and then you're further shocked to find out there's no real research and development or education or cooperation, you're stunned. But when you have the sense that the minutes with your child is limited, then every second becomes invaluable. To get your child to even suck on an ice cube, be somewhat normal, is sometimes miraculous. Because in the absence of a solution to drink or eat, you're given some sort of opioid medication to the point eventually you go into that coma. So just to shout out, that's Gabby. My daughter survived, Gabby did not. But the last moments with the screaming and crying, if only she could have sucked on some ice cubes to say one more thing to her mother or father, that would have made all the world's difference. So today we are taking an advanced step forward for the benefit of those patients, which is priority number one. We're taking a step forward for medicine and science and education while assuring a friendly business environment in New Jersey. In front of us today is legislation that was born out of exhaustive work, partnerships, and many people working together for the common good of the state of New Jersey. We held meetings throughout New Jersey from all corners, and we listened to patients and doctors and industry experts. I see Tara Sargente here who helped write this, and spoke with universities and community leaders. We even held consortium meetings and conducted several all-night writing and research sessions, all of which contributed to the final version of this bill. This bill is, without question, the most progressive, innovative medical marijuana bill in the United States. And I recall today some of the pushing and pulling and debating and the question being asked of me, but Joe, where else are they doing such things? And proudly I said, nowhere. Today, we're doing it. Moving forward, doctors and scientists can work together, universities can educate, and patients can improve their lives. Let me just say, this legislation would not have been possible if it wasn't for the courage and strength and leadership of Speaker Coughlin and Governor Murphy. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe alluded to this, didn't allude to it, he spoke to it. This is not abstract for Joe. So keep Joe's daughter and everybody else who's battling the battle, Mackenzie and others here, keep them all in our prayers. We're going to take a couple of very quick questions if the press have any. If they don't, I'd be very happy to go ahead and sign. Brett.
Yesterday, the tax incentives at your program expired. We don't have a new one yet. So I guess we have nothing now. And what progress we make towards getting something in place?
I'm optimistic. I haven't had a chance. We're still digging out from getting the budget signed and getting all of the aftermath of that. I'm still hopeful that we can find common ground sooner than later. That's a high priority for us. I know it is for the legislators and the speakers here. I know it is for him as well.
Right now, nothing is in place. There's no incentive program at all.
There is technically nothing in place, but it does there's a significant amount of lag when you've applied for something. So there's not an immediate July 2nd crisis, but we need to get on it sooner than later. Michael.
What's the status of adult use marijuana going forward? Are we looking at a referendum?
Senate President and Senator Scuteri came out about 6 weeks ago, as I recall, and said that they felt this was going to be a referendum in 2020. I'm frustrated we haven't been able to get over the goal line. I thought we all worked really well together on this. The Speaker, the Senate President, myself, and all of our teams. We came very close. We missed by a couple of votes in the Senate. But I think we all did everything we could. I'd love to see us take another shot, but I think the worst case scenario is a referendum in 2020. The concern I have with, if there's anybody watching who, this is on the adult use side, forgive me, who thinks the status quo is acceptable, please let me remind you as we turn the corner for the July 4th holiday, about 600 people will be arrested this week, plus or minus, on marijuana offenses, overwhelmingly persons of color. like 450 plus of that 600. Our kids are exposed. The drug traffickers are running the business and making all the money and setting the rules. Anybody who thinks the status quo is acceptable has not taken time to understand the status quo. Please, real quick. I feel like Vince Lombardi in the Ice Bowl. I got to protect the fans out here to my right here. We got to end this game soon.
On the social justice aspect of this, are you interested in exploring decriminalization if you're not going to be able to legalize?
You know, I haven't been a fan historically because, again, the drug traffickers continue to run the business. But at a certain point, I think we have to look at all options. The expungement piece, and again, Craig and the Senate President and I were all in on what would have been the most historic expungement set of legislation in the history of this country, whether related to adult use marijuana or not. That continues to be the reason I'm in this fight, which is social justice. So I think we can't allow a system where 600 people are going to get arrested this week, 450 or more are of color. You know what? I'm not going to say hell no to anything right now. We got to do something. I'm not a fan of it historically because, again, we leave the business in the hands of the wrong people. Anybody else? Paul?
Yeah, on the direct shore rental tax, that bill is on your desk, right?
On the what, sorry?
The direct shore rental tax?
Yes.
Yeah, what's that?
It's on our desk. We're reviewing it along with gobs of other bills, so nothing to report there. Nikita? Yeah, I will take. I couldn't hear you Sunday, but I heard you clearly now, and I won't answer that question. I continue to hope that we will find common ground. I know why I was elected. I know what brung me to the dance, and I'm hopeful that we can find common ground. I want to say one last, please.
Are you concerned at all that there be enough municipalities that would accept the expansion of marijuana?
I'm not concerned about that at all. Not at all. Let me just say this in closing. Off topic. I count 7 television screens outdoors. The United States women at 3 o'clock today will play England in the semifinals of the Women's World Cup. USA! I want to thank, make sure Tommy knows I gave him a plug for folks to stay around and have 10 or 12 Budweisers and get ready for the USA women's game. Again, I want to thank the Honig family, most importantly, to the other advocates, to the families like Joe's and others who are in the fight. Mackenzie and others here. I want to thank our administration and leadership. I want to thank the elected officials led by the Speaker and the advocates. We work together. For folks who don't think we can get stuff done, this is a big step forward for this state. It is a big step forward for compassion for our patients, both big and small. It's a big step forward to the great state of New Jersey. God bless you all, and thank you. We're going to sign this into law. guy in our administration who fought the fight every single day, Assistant Commissioner, the Division of Medical Marijuana. Let's hear it for Jeff Pratt. Jeff? I wasn't sure he was going to be here, so I gave him Caramel's my witness. I gave him his pen yesterday. Again, we can't get this done on our own. I want to thank the leadership, beginning with Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Kaufman. We need two and not one chamber. Let's hear it for his leadership, Senator Joe Vitale. He had help, as he mentioned, it was not partisan. From across the aisle, Monmouth County's own, a friend, Senator Declan Stanton Gray. He spoke incredibly eloquently. He wouldn't be here in many respects without our Assemblywoman Joanne Downey. Again, another guy for whom this is not abstract, Assemblyman Andrew Zwicker. Again, a guy who spoke eloquently a few moments ago, who lives the struggle every day, Assemblyman Joe Daniels. And last but not least, also Monmouth County's own guy who was in struggle from the beginning, Assemblyman Eric Hotel. These are words of other than the patient elements of what we're doing this bill are effective as soon as we get some machines up and running immediately. So this